I want to ask you about Norm Smith. Obviously, we can't have an interview with Tony Charlton and not raise the name of Norm Smith.
Yeah.
You did a one-on-one interview with him in 1965, which is probably the most dramatic football news event in the history of television, I suspect. Let me set the scene, Tony. It's mid-season 1965. Melbourne is 9-3 after 12 rounds, having won its first 8 games. Melbourne was the defending premier from 1964, and Melbourne had won 6 premierships in 10 years.
Correct.
Norm Smith gets the sack. Take up the story from there.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Just an extraordinary thing. I mean, it was impossible. I mean, people were in shock about that. What? Norm Smith's sack? Just couldn't be. But it was, and the president of the club at the time, Dr. Don Duffy, said that this had been brewing for some time. Norm could be very autocratic. I understood that side of it, and he wanted things his way. In running a club, not always can that be, but he was on a matter of principle as far as this was concerned.
The principle being?
Well, I'm trying to remember his quote, and I think I can. They went to a public school, I went to a state school.
You went to a public school, I went to a state school, I said, but they still spelt principle the same way. And it's a principle for which I am fighting. I was brought up that way. Len was brought up that way. And if you haven't got principle, you haven't got anything. And I've got principle, and I'll fight for this principle to the day I die.
It was an amazingly powerful interview that you had with him.
Well, it was amazing.
Did you need to coerce him into doing that?
No, he was true to his word. I mean, he had offers for substantial money of the time to give his story elsewhere. But as he was part of the channel I was with and our football show, man of principle, he resisted that and saved it for the Sunday in the sports show.
It was unacceptable to me that I could work with men who wouldn't back me, men who would expect me to get the utmost from the players and demand from the players the loyalty and support, and at the other end of the line were not prepared to give me their support. That's where it started.
What repercussions, Norm, do you expect this whole episode to have within the club?
The repercussions I would like it to have is that every Melbourne Football Club supporter and every Melbourne Cricket Club supporter registers a protest in the strongest terms at the way it's been handled. Get rid of these blokes. That's the only way the club will progress. I have told the president, I have told the secretary, I spoke to them as friends. I said, look, the club's slipping. This has been used again. I'm undermining them. I can see something happening that nobody else can see. I spoke to Ronnie this morning. He can see it. He could see it happening. Everyone can see it happening, but the fools who run it.
Were you nervous doing that interview with Norm Smith?
Yes, I was, because the tension was extremely high. And his wife, Marge, she was wonderful support to him. She was just off camera in tears as this developed, and that upset me greatly.
You know, these days we're totally driven by ratings.
Yes.
Was that relevant back then? I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
Your discussion with him was friend to friend,
yeah.
and a dramatic event, no doubt about that. But did you see the sort of the commercial reality in it too, that you had the interview that everyone wanted?
Yes, I did, and of course, extremely grateful to him for resisting the opportunities that he had for far greater money to give an interview elsewhere. It certainly was a very dramatic time, just a marvellous man, and the sport lost a hero when he passed on.
We're talking about this man, again, 6 premierships in 10 years. What sort of impact did it have on the community?
Well, you're a noted sports journalist. You would appreciate this more than most, but it was reported and took the first 4 pages of the Sun News pictorial on the Monday morning.
Do you give any credence to the theory that the Norm Smith curse has been imposed upon the Melbourne Football Club because of events back in the 60s? They haven't won a premiership since, and so many people now believe that's how they treated Norm Smith that's caused the fate.
No, I don't subscribe to that view.
What do you think's gone wrong with your football club?
Well, it's a totally different era. I mean, it's
a totally different era for everyone.
Yes, the complexities of it, and the critical nature of getting the talent, the recruiting of the right people. Just doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly hasn't happened for Melbourne for a far too long period.
He died at 57. Must have been a huge shock. I mean, blokes are still coaching post 57.
Yes.
What happened?
Oh, I think it was heart failure. Visited him out at Moreland at Sacred Heart Hospital out there a couple of times. But the family were pretty tight-lipped about that. You didn't talk about those things in these days. I'm sure it was his heart. Subsequently, it might be proved that's not accurate, but I think that is right.
Do you think he was heartbroken, Tony? He ended up at South Melbourne.
Broke his heart.
It did it?
Yeah, we got them back together, played a small part in that, got him back to Melbourne, but the twain never met. It was never the same again. The trust was gone. So he went off to South Melbourne subsequently, as you know.